Hello and welcome to Wealthy Mind. I am your host, Misty Rose Gold, International Success Coach. And here at Wealthy Mind, we love to help you create and maintain a wealthy mind. Today we have Joe with us. So, Joe, would you please tell us your name? What do you do? Where do you hail from? All the goodies.
Oh, well, thank you for having me on. My name is Joe Boglino. I am a expense reduction analyst, consulting partner for a organization called Era Group, and I hail right in Denver, Colorado.
Mm, I
Exciting.
love what you do. I know most people might be like, huh, what? But the business community loves reducing expenses. So,
Yes, that is usually top. You know what I found, Misty, that it's always top of mind, but it's never top priority. Isn't it weird?
yeah.
But that's what
Mm,
happens. I think just the thought of going in and getting and digging through finances and expenses is daunting enough for people to put that off down the road. We'll get to that later. But it's always
hmm
top of mind. Profitability is what people in business are in for, right? But
hmm
I run into that all the time.
hmm Yeah, that's why it doesn't seem weird to me because it's a pain point for people. They're like, yep, I would love to ignore this and put it off as long as possible because it's painful to go and look at all the things and pull out all the paperwork and find all the accounts and do all the things. And it's, classic psychology. People run away from pain and toward pleasure. That doesn't seem like a pleasurable process.
No, and I do think you're absolutely right. I also think there's a layer and level of vulnerability there that you have
hmm
to be honest with yourself. And
hmm
yeah, looking into expenses to see, in one sense, if you find great savings, you're like, great, wow, what work I did. I found something fantastic. But then you're saying, my God, I've been spending that amount of money for that amount of time. Oh, I'm such a buffoon. I can't believe I allowed that to happen. So yeah, it can be a trap for sure,
hmm
both sides of it.
Yeah, and you do have to get vulnerable with the person that's got their fingers combing through your finances. So it's finding the right person that you can trust to do that. And if you're worried about the perceptions of your direct network, I recommend not using somebody in your direct network to 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 go through your finances with a fine-tooth comb and help you sort through everything and reduce those expenses. So I understand the challenges there. I understand like we don't want to look like an idiot. Well, guess what, you guys? I've said this on other podcast episodes. The business owner community, generally, unless they're in the financial industries, are not financial experts. So we, as leaders, expect ourselves to know everything, but we don't. And then it takes a lot of courage and cojones and vulnerability to go to somebody and say, listen, um, I want to be more profitable. I want to have like all of my books dialed in. I want to have all my numbers dialed in, all the things. And that can be a very painful process mentally, emotionally, and financially sometimes. So, sometimes it's like ignorance is bliss, right?
Yeah, I do think it's bliss, but it's probably irresponsible, right? And to your point that you just mentioned there, you know, I don't think there's probably a business that might be listening here that hasn't gone through the annual strategic plan. You bring all the stakeholders in, you sit and you huddle for an offsite, a day offsite somewhere in some boardroom, and you go through the year that was and the year that's going to be. And oftentimes, and I promise I'll catch this to what I do and what I think is so important about the mindset
hmm
is that most companies will do a SWOT analysis, right? Hey, we're going to look at our strengths, we're going to look at our weaknesses, our opportunities, and our threats. Now, I've sat through hundreds of these. And it's kind of fun. Maybe it's a self-flagellating type of endeavor to a degree, but I've always felt that they were never sincere and very honest. And to the point that you mentioned about the type of person that you would bring in, I know this sounds crazy, but bringing in someone who is more of a stranger to your operation than a friend, I would advocate for. Now, I'm not saying that because I represent being a stranger to
Mm-hmm.
99.9% of the businesses out there, but
Mm-hmm.
here's my point. So think about this. When you do that strength, weakness, and opportunity and threat exercise corporately, you're sitting around together and you're coming up with your strengths, and then you're coming up with your weaknesses. And but the fact is that those are very subjective tells in most cases. And you're doing the best you can. And how honest are we when we look in the mirror? I mean, I know that I'm not. I mean, when I look in the mirror, I see Brad Pitt, and you can see me. I'm far from that. And so
That's
I
awesome.
used to always ask for the operations that I used to operate with. I would always advocate for something like this. I would leave the SWOT analysis, except for maybe the opportunities and the threats, to the outsiders. So in the businesses that I was ruminating in, that would mean I would reach out to customers. Hey, Mr.
Mm,
Customer, can you
mm,
tell me what my strength is and can you tell me what my weakness is?
mm,
Um, my supply chain, all the vendors that support what I do, can you tell me where I'm good and where I'm bad? It almost makes your toes curl to get that feedback. And I would encourage everybody to even try this on. Do the SWOT analysis for yourself. Chances are you're not going to come up with the strengths that you really should own. And maybe it's just not going to be accurate. You're not going to give yourself enough credit, or you're going to give yourself too much credit.
mm.
Your weaknesses, we generally, I mean, how many of us really own it? I'd like to say that I own my weaknesses, but do I admit them? I think once you do, you can be set free. So,
Yes,
right?
yes.
So think about this. Think about this. And, you know, if somebody had the guts to say, I have a circle of people that are around me, I'm going to ask them to tell me what my strengths are. And I'm going to ask them to tell me what my weaknesses are. Now, your toes are going to curl by thinking about making that request. And then when you get the responses back, especially when you have set the platform that says, I promise you, I'm not going to cry. I'm not going to get angry when you call me out for something I know is actually true, but I will
Mm,
take it from a growth mindset perspective. It's profound what you will learn. And in business, when you go out exterior of your corporation and you get this feedback from those satellites that are around your operation, it can be tremendously beneficial. And then you can get down
mm-hmm,
to business. And
mm-hmm.
expenses, where this comes into play here, the most successful leaders that I've ever engaged with in my career have been humble and they've been confident. It's an incredible dynamic to participate with someone like that
And they
because
delegate.
and they delegate. And what do they replace
Yeah.
with delegation? They inspect, right? They review and they look at. I agree. So, the thing is with most CFOs that I engage, I would say that we're in that conundrum of strength and weakness. Well, I kind of think I might be weak in that expense, but I think we're good. It's the devil I know versus the devil I don't. And I fully trust my staff. They've got all these expenses airtight and buttoned down. The fact of the matter is, though, is I call it the fishbowl syndrome. So if you were to take a look at your organization as a fishbowl, and you've been in that fishbowl for years, and all the people that are in there are the people that you hired, and you've collaborated with for years, all the coral, which is the furniture and the walls of the place, you no longer see the blemishes and the marks on the walls because you walk by it all the time.
Mm-hmm.
You don't know if you're swimming corporately in clean water or dirty water unless you allow a fresh fish to be plopped into your fish tank and have those fresh eyes. And
Mm,
essentially, that is the role that my organization operates in. If
mm,
we can find a CFO and a CEO that understands that, let's get a real idea if we're swimming in clean or dirty water, because our reality here that we have just embraced, it may not be the truth. It may be some,
yeah.
we're just so used to it that we deal with it. And
Mm-hmm.
that's the key thing. So a lot of this, Misty, is psychological.
Oh,
to a degree.
100%.
Yeah.
Bring it on, preach, brother, because this is what I deal with too as a coach. So you're speaking to the choir here, and I'm just like, preach on, keep preaching. Because
Yeah.
when you do bring in an outside perspective, if that outside perspective is based in experience, wisdom, and your best interest and the best interest of the business, they do have the ability to give you the perspective of the raw, honest truth. Now, is that painful for people that maybe not, they're not as honest and they're just like, you know what? I love living in my delusions and my self-created fantasies, and I don't want you telling me the truth because that's going to burst my bubble. I think I
Yeah.
am the best thing since sliced bread, and I actually might be like a horrible human being. You know what I mean? So there's a fine line that we walk as professionals that are the outside eyes. So, yes, I agree with you, but there's also the psychological challenges of now how much of the truth do you feed the people in the organization? Do you spoon feed it to them or do you feed it to them all at once? That's a tricky one, and we have to gauge that on a daily basis with our clients and potential clients. So, um, I think we need to be honest with ourselves first and really evaluate like how authentic am I? Am I truly honest with myself? And can I handle someone coming in with a clear vision of what's going on because they're not in the fishbowl with me? They might be in a fishbowl next to mine, right? But they're not in my
Hmm.
fishbowl. They're not an employee of this fishbowl. So am I willing to listen to them?
Yeah. And, we have to, the word expectation is such a dangerous word for all of us.
Oh,
And
it can
this,
be good or really bad.
right. And, I've been in situations where I've engaged a CFO and the CFO has taken my scope of work that I've built for them. And the CEO's reaction has been, well, why are we doing this? This is what I pay you for. An expectation. An
Mm,
expectation from the CEO that's been applied to the CFO that basically says, CFO, you need to be a specialist in everything that we buy, everything
mm,
that we do. That's insane, right? But that
mm,
is an expectation that most, in this kind of corporate
mm.
duo live in.
Sure.
And I would say that it's super dangerous because we all put so much expectations on ourselves that, well, I'm not going to let the CEO down. I'm going to work 15 hours a day and become a specialist in how to cut ingredient costs for my CPG manufacturing operation. So it, I would tell you that a lot of my engagements start psychologically, much more so than I ever could imagine, Misty. I
Hmm.
mean, I was raring to go. I mean, this is a no-brainer. You're going to have someone who comes in, look at your expenses on a contingency basis,
Hmm.
and who could say no to that?
Everyone.
Oh my God. Yes,
Everyone.
yes. A lot of people say no. That's for
Yes.
sure.
And I understand that so thoroughly. It's a balancing act of presenting logical, strategic plans or proposals for people that they can wrap their head around and mixing it with the psychological truth behind it. So in my coaching, I lead with either growth strategies or exit strategies. What are we doing with this business? What are we implementing to achieve that goal? If the goal isn't clearly identified, let's work on that. And then I always tell my people that naturally your personal development and your mindset and all the things that are attached to the psychology of business, they're going to pop up, but they'll do it naturally. I'm not going to
Hmm.
dig for them straight away. And that always puts people at ease because I'm not going for the most uncomfortable thing first. And it naturally does happen. So immediately we jump into, okay, what's the goal for your business? Or what's your exit strategy? How many years are we looking at? And they'll be like, I don't know. Let's start talking about it and figure that out
Hmm.
together. When we start talking about it, inevitably the psychology piece in business comes into play. Always, always, always. But it's a natural process that I find myself in. It's like a nice little flow or a river that I'm able to jump into with the person, and it makes it an enjoyable coaching process. But yeah, you know what? This year I've changed my approach a little bit because we've gone from a state of fear that's just naturally in the American population to hypervigilance. And I'm speaking directly to that in a lot of conversations because that hypervigilance is paralyzing people. It's paralyzing businesses. And if you don't move, you die. If the business doesn't move, it dies. So we need to get the business owners moving, and the businesses continue to move regardless of the uncertainty, regardless of the fear, regardless of the hypervigilance. We have to. And I'm telling everyone because every single business owner that I talk to right now, corporate level and down, all the way to the solo entrepreneurs, are dealing with the top of my funnel is full and no one's converting. And I said, this is why, because people have shifted into a state of hypervigilance and it has them paralyzed. You have to directly speak to this. Where businesses could get away with not dealing with the psychology behind business before this year, great. They can't do it anymore. You have to address the psychology behind business and the people interactions and all of that and how it ties together, right? Until businesses are all strictly run off of robots, we have the people element to deal with, which is the psychology of business. So we have to address it. And I'm telling everyone, if you speak directly to the hypervigilance, it helps the other person identify where they're at because most people are running on autopilot, not self-aware. And because they're not self-aware, you're helping them gain that self-awareness that explains why they're behaving this way. And then it gives them an opportunity to do something about it. And I told every single one, even at corporate level, talk to this, speak to this, work this into your sales funnel, and you'll get some conversions because you have to get them unstuck and you have to speak directly to what has them stuck. It's not about the best sales pitch. It's about how do you get them unstuck as an individual because they're the one making the financial decision.
You know, you said a couple of things there that to me represent almost one word, and that's called comfort. So if you don't move, move or die, right? And
Yeah.
autopilot is also, I think, a level of comfort.
Hmm.
We are taught as young kids to seek comfort, seek success so you can have a comfortable life, so you can find a place where you can just relax and not have anxiety. The fact of the matter is no one's ever said that life is like a reservoir. It's not a reservoir. It's not this placid, untumultuous existence we live in. It's a
Hmm.
river, right? I mean, it's constantly moving, constantly going.
Hmm.
Expenses can represent those rocks, and you're trying to avoid them because it's uncomfortable. But when you get down to it, Misty, and maybe this speaks a lot to the human nature of our mindsets, because we're ingrained in being comfortable,
Hmm.
we seek it. But I can tell you that every uncomfortable situation I've ever had in my life, I am so grateful for it because of the growth it's brought me.
Hmm.
And so looking into the checkbook or looking into expenses can be uncomfortable, but the fact is you're going to learn so much from that introspection, that hypervigilance, you're going to be better, stronger for it. So how do you tell people who've been ingratiated into comfort to tell them, hey, seek discomfort, move
Uh,
or die,
yeah,
right? It's
yeah.
so difficult to
So
do.
what I tell people because I'm very you know what, I'm just gonna be direct where I need to be direct. And this is one of those spaces where I need to be direct. And I'm like, stop drinking the fucking Kool-Aid. The Kool-Aid we were fed as children that we need an idealistic life. And that is ingrained in our subconscious programming. So if you want to be at peace with life, you can't control it, right? But are you going to be at peace in that river or are you going to fight it and die? Because if you're in the river and you're fighting it, you're going to die. If you're in the river and you float with it, you're going to live. Awesome. Great. Right? So
Right.
stop drinking the fucking Kool-Aid that we were fed as children for an idealistic life. And that belief system fights the reality of human existence. Human existence has built-in challenges. It has built-in trauma. It has built in everything that we deal with on a regular basis. And people are constantly fighting that, trying to make it perfect, trying to make
Mm-hmm.
it so that everything is perfect, everything is still, everything
Yeah.
is just like, okay, we're going to sit next to this lake in a cabin for the rest of our lives and do nothing. Um,
Hmm.
okay, have fun. That's your way out of this life. That's how you want to die. Go have fun. But that's not how the human existence was designed. It is designed for development. It is designed for us becoming people, becoming something, right? So, in order to become the best versions of ourselves, the most powerful versions, the most successful versions, we have to face challenges. So, you can either choose to disrupt the idealistic programming and step into reality of human existence and find fulfillment there, or you can fight the current and die. Like, let's just be real.
Yeah. I mean, I think that if we were raised to look at a challenge in the uncomfortable times as an opportunity to grow versus being a victim of it,
Hmm.
oh, it'd be a much different scenario. And I truly feel like
Hmm.
while we're talking deep into mindset and that kind of thing, expenses are in my world highlight that in such a big way that they're avoided, they're forgotten, we're moving on because we got this goal to get. But the one thing, Missy, and I wonder about your experience on this,
Mm.
when you're coaching these clients about goal setting and that kind of stuff,
Hmm.
I have learned something here really recently, and because I've always been goal oriented, get to the finish line, get to the top. Unfortunately, when I got to the finish line and got to the top, I was either, if I made it, I was just relieved. I didn't celebrate it. If I
Mm.
didn't, I'd beat myself up. But what I have found, and this, I know this is a weird connection with expenses because to me, if your business owner can focus on what their reality is, which is only their present, and do what they can control, which is to operate and tweak and move and can constantly keep active, hyper
Hmm.
vigilant within their own business, even when it's scary, that goal will just happen naturally. I don't know if you've seen that or if I'm talking nonsense, but I find that that's a playbook that has been very, pretty successful.
So, what is your direct question to me?
Well, when you're talking about goal setting,
Hmm.
how are you laying out the road for these business owners to get
Hmm.
there? Are you do you focus on the tactic or do you focus on the end result and allow everything to backfill? What's that look like?
So it's a mixture, right? And it's based on the individual and the business that we're dealing with. So it's first identifying what that goal is so that we can work toward it. Some people want to have 10 goals to work toward simultaneously. And I'm like, how effective is that? So let's try to dial it into one. Let's figure out what that one is first. And I just had this conversation with somebody today. And I'm like, you've got to trust this process. You have to trust that if you put all of your energy and effort into this one thing, it will start moving the needle in your business and it will start giving you the momentum that you're desiring. And at some point, you're going to have to trust the experts around you. And there's two of us, and we both are coaches, and the other's a male, and he's like 70 years old. And we love each other dearly. And this person talks to both of us. I'm like, you have to trust and get this thing moving. Like, there's a specific marketing approach that you can take to this side of your business that will move everything in the right direction. So, first is getting them convinced to focus on one thing and put their energy and effort into that so we can get the train moving if it's not already moving, right? So, there's that part of it. And then what do we need to implement in order to get there? So we went through some of that. I'm like, all right, cool. Create a presentation around this strategy that we just talked about. So then you can start reaching out to schools and pitch it to them. And that's how we're going to do this. And then there's a part of it where you just have to do the steps and let the next step reveal
Mhm.
itself. Do the step in front of you, and then we'll address the next one and see how it plays out. And I said in 6 months to a year, you can look at maybe adding another service as long as it's aligned with what's already working. But we need to see what's going to work first, and you need to show up and do it consistently. And there's a lot of unknown that we deal with as business owners or CEOs, and we have to, or leaders, right? So we have to face those unknowns with, okay, cool. If I do what I know is potentially going to work, or if I have a formula that already works, we just keep doing that and show up. And I told her, I deal with unknowns every single day. I can't. like fully predict what's going to happen in my business and where the opportunities are going to pop up. But what I do is that I show up consistently. I do the boring things. I show up consistently, 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 and automatically, boom, opportunities show up when I'm ready for them and when they're ready for me. So that's a huge part of it of we need to have some structure to the goal setting, but also be a little bit of fluid with it and adjust and pivot along the way. And that's the expectation I set for my clients is we do have to adjust and pivot along the way. And if you're willing to turn it into a game and have fun, it's way better. Way better.
Right.
It's
Yeah.
an
I think that's nice
adventure.
advice. Hmm. I totally agree. I
And they're
totally agree.
like, that doesn't align with my fearful thinking, and it doesn't align with my comfort zone, and it doesn't align with the idealistic life that I want for myself. And I'm like,
Yeah.
well, are you miserable? Yes, because you're trying to control everything and you're living in fear. You're fucking miserable. I'm sorry. This is my soapbox this week. And it's like, ooh, I get to talk about it on the podcast with somebody. So I'm dropping F bombs now. It's great, but you're miserable. And that's where the F bombs coming out is because I'm so passionate about me being fulfilled as a business owner and entrepreneur, and I want others to be fulfilled too. And they're not fulfilled if they're fighting the natural design of life and trying to live in their comfort zone and live in fear and try to control everything. They're miserable.
Hmm.
I'm not. And
Hmm.
I can't tell you what my day is going to look like tomorrow. Do I have things on my schedule? I do. I have things on my schedule, but I can't tell you how tomorrow is going to present itself. And that's fun for me. So when I tell people to turn it into a game, it's an adventure, like a child, right? A child's not like, ooh, what's going to happen tomorrow? They're like, they don't give a shit. They're focused on right now, having as much fun as possible, right? Ooh, what's around the next corner? That's exciting. I'm
Yeah.
looking forward to figuring that out, right? So
Yeah.
bringing that perspective to the table short circuits that fearful comfort zone kind of lifestyle.
We are all fighting comfort. We're all fighting fear every day, every day. And when you think about the world that I live in, it presents itself in a very big way.
Oh, exponentially more because it's finance.
Yeah. Oh no, it's not meant to question how someone's operated. It's meant to say, hey, we've got specialists that know how this works in this particular area. Let us help you. This is not an indictment on how you've operated. And it does create a
Mm,
level of discomfort,
mm,
but I wish that people would embrace that because if they did, I think they would see that as, again, I'm not a victim of the analysis that was done. I
mm,
am a benefactor of it. And I didn't have to do all the work. And I learned something from it.
mm,
There is an engagement that I don't have that my clients don't learn something new. And I'll tell you, I've had some clients tell me, look, if you're going to change my process, I don't want you here. I pay people big money to have these processes in place. And okay, I'm not here to change your process naturally. It's a residue of finding better answers. And if you
mm,
can incorporate those, then great. That is the freebie that comes out of this introspection. But yeah, it's really difficult because, Misty, in my engagements, here's what I know with business owners, particularly CFOs and their staff. They have a lot of pride in what they do, and they want to do a great job for ownership and for their own, sense of corporate pride. And
mm,
I'm hiring me, I feel like can help add that to that sense. But you
mm,
know, the fact of the matter is, there has not been one company that I've engaged, and I'm an industry agnostic guy, that staff doesn't know what they're buying and doesn't know what they're procuring. They absolutely know what they need. They have the whys too behind it, but they don't know how they were sold to, and they never will. And that's the difference in that's allowing a third party that has their back to be able to position themselves to look behind the curtain on how they were sold to. The one way I've gotten that across is when I'm dealing with a manufacturer, for example, that places their goods wherever. They have their own sales and business development people. those people know how to sell their product, and they know where their profit is, and they know where they can cut costs, they know where they can cut corners in order to sell their solution. So but these clients are not applying this same notion to their own services that they've acquired.
Mm,
And once I put it in that perspective, that having someone in an organization that can really understand how you were sold to can really make a big difference in the
mm,
expenses that you have. But it's difficult because they have such pride, such comfort, and such fear that what they've established isn't meeting that low bar benchmark cost basis
mm-hmm,
baseline.
mm-hmm.
That makes sense?
Yes. You said a word that I want to touch on that goes with another word. So pride and ego. How do we break through our own pride and ego in order to maybe take the business to the next level or tighten up our expenses, whatever it is? Like, it's so important for us to look at. So I think about where I'm at in my journey with my development as a leader and a human being. And I'm challenging myself every day to completely remove the limitations from the powers that be and put it out there of, ooh, I'm looking forward to what you're going to create in the next moments of my life. And I am intentionally not projecting what I want the next hour to look like, the next day to look like, so that it's opening up a potential for a different life to be created, not completely different life, but an elevated version or a changed version of the life that I've been living to be created. So it's a meditative practice that I've brought into my world recently because I see the limitations that I've been putting on my future by wanting it to be predictable.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm bringing
Yeah.
it down to the moment. It's like I am challenging myself, and it's sweat worthy a lot of the times when I'm like, okay, I'm looking forward to what you create. Now, if this is God, spirit, universe, source, I don't give a shit what you call it, but that's where I'm aiming it. I'm like, okay, what do you thank you for what you're creating in the next moments of my life? And just stepping that into it and allowing it to be and looking at it through the lens of I'm watching a movie unfold. And I did that before coming into this call with you. I'm like, ooh, thank you for the next moments of my life and what you're creating there. And not putting any preconceived notions into this interview with you and letting the conversation unfold, which I naturally do anyway. But it's more of that space of maybe I was imposing a little bit in these conversations before, and I want to see if I can remove some of those limitations that I was unconsciously or consciously putting on things. I did that this morning going into a networking event. Thank you for the next moments of my life that you're creating and let it unfold like a movie. And how this came to me was either I think I was asleep or just waking up or something. And I had this complete vision of I see my life and it's in color, right? And then I see the universe, meaning the blackness and the stars and the planets. And in between was the moment in front of me was being created. So it's like I'm walking forward, and as I'm walking forward, the moment in front of me is being created. And as soon as I had that vision and like brought it into my system, it opened me up to a different thought process of, oh crap, I'm putting limitations on that moment of creation. So I want to walk in this world like I see in this vision of, I don't know what's being created in the next moments of my life. And I want to open myself up to just watching that movie unfold. And it's been a game changer since I started this, and it's been very recent. So, and I'm one that's like, ooh, how can I let go? But there was a part of me that was like, ooh, but I want things predictable. And I needed to break that down, and I didn't know how I was going to get there. But then this vision just changed everything. So, sorry if I went like too far into
No,
the
no,
mindset rabbit hole.
but Misty, what you're saying, we're all grappling with, and I would say that it's a debate between faith and fear, and we're all trying to be more faithful in, hey, whatever is ahead, I can be able to handle. It'll be for my greater good,
Mhm.
and the fact is fear keeps us, a slave to the to-do list, a slave to the predictability. And there's value in that. I'm not saying that there isn't. But when you become to a point where you're controlling so much, you're just going to suffocate yourself in your operations. I think you're advocating for this approach that says, I'm going to have faith that, whatever happens to me, if it's good or bad, is for my greater good. Ooh, what?
Yes.
You mean if this
Yes.
catastrophe happens, this could be for your greater good? I mean,
Hmm.
try that on as a pair of pants to put on. I mean, I think that
Hmm.
if you ventured that way, you'd go, okay, this was done to me or for me, so I can grow in a certain way, and then bring that to my crew and my tribe and my village around me. That's
Hmm.
what I took from what you said. I hope I got that right, but I
No, you got it
strongly
right. It was good. Yeah.
I strongly feel like by the way, I can't achieve this. I haven't been able to achieve this. It's a daily exercise, but I believe that most of us who are walking the street are faced with very similar circumstances. And the question is always how. That's always seems to be the word people get stuck on. How do
Mhm.
I do it? Well, the
Mhm.
answer is just do it. But that's even hard. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Because you have to, like the movie, the vision I saw, you have to allow the next moment to unfold
Yeah.
instead of trying to predict it and control it. So I've been in that practice my entire life of everything works for the greater good, for my good and for everyone else that I come in contact with. And every experience is there to help me be a better coach, to help me be a better leader, all the things, right? And I came up against a suicide a couple months ago, and that freaked out my inner child. And we're going to bring that into full circle for this morning because when this movie, The Vision, came into my life and made it very clear that I was putting limitations on what the divine can create in my next moments because I was looking for predictability. As soon as I started practicing that realization, it brought another realization that hit me this morning on the way to the event. And the realization was my inner child forward slash subconscious programming didn't trust, or I'm going to say didn't because now it's in a different space, didn't trust life and its processes. Which is
I think that's
rightfully
true.
so. Rightfully
Yeah.
so. I was
Right.
born into a war zone. I was born into lots of trauma and abuse and all kinds of crazy shit. Rightfully so. Right. So that was the snapshot that my younger self, super young me, took from life and said, well, I don't trust life and its processes. Go fuck life. Right. So that was the snapshot. And that was the deeper realization of my subconscious inner child programming that came this morning was, oh, that makes a lot of sense. Okay. And it came because I was asking the question, where is my inner child desperate? And why does that desperation show up? And that's the answer that popped up.
Hmm.
I'm like, oh, okay. So little me doesn't trust in life and its processes. So then I flipped it in all of my interactions today. I trust life and its processes.
Hmm.
And I had some crazy stuff happen that I got to apply that to. So it was like, oh, okay, you're going to try to apply this. All right, here's some crazy experiences that you have to deal with, and let's apply these to those experiences. And it made so much sense. And I'm like, how many people are hanging out in the same space? How many people are with their deep subconscious programming hanging out in the same space of, I don't trust life and I don't trust its processes. So therefore, they're fighting it continuously.
Mhm.
A lot of people, in my estimation of all of my interactions with the world, I'm going to say a huge majority of the population are hanging out in that same subconscious programming. I do not
Oh,
trust life nor its processes. Why? Because life hurt us as children and maybe older, and we fight. the pain, right? We fight the challenges. Anything that hurts us becomes labeled as a bad thing. And that's not true. As you said, challenges are opportunities for growth. So for those people who are raised in a household that taught them that, you are uber blessed. Uber blessed. For those who weren't, we got some challenges, right? So we're the ones that have to teach ourselves that. We have to reparent ourselves as adults essentially and say, you know what? Little me, guess what? Life is all full of challenges and blessings, ups and downs, sunshine and rain, right? I trust the process. There is a solution. And life essentially is working on my behalf and those around me.
When we talk about embracing this notion of whatever happens to me is for my greater good,
Mm,
and it can even be tragic. I mean, honestly, I think if you approach it like that, you can get through these issues more easily. And I would say this, Misty,
mhm,
that somebody who's going to coach in business, for example, who's been through hell, who's
mhm,
gone through shit, is the guy that I want
mhm.
to hire or the person I want to hire, right?
Yes.
And so I call it the pearl that drops out of the poop. And can you recognize the pearl when you're going through the shitty situation? It
Mm,
takes a lot of awareness to do that because oftentimes I think we are held to going through some trauma and really enduring it, getting through it, recovering from it, and then finally saying maybe years down the road, you know what? I am better for what I just learned when I went through that thing.
mhm, mhm,
And I try to advocate, can you try? And it's very easy for someone who's not going through the trauma right now. But while you're going through it, can you open your eyes to a point that says, okay, there's a lesson here. There's a reason why I'm given this shit burger. Um, what can I learn from it while you're going through it?
mhm.
And,
Yes.
I really wish, and I'm not sure who would be qualified enough to teach this, but mindset, which is particularly what happens when you get over 50, you begin to think more around that topic about your mindset and how you
Mm,
handle things. But I really wish there was some school from the time I was 5 years old that
same.
tried to indoctrinate us into this mindset, that we could. Can you imagine how powerful we would be if we had more tools going into our teenage years, more tools when we go into the roaring 20s?
Mhm,
It'd be great. But,
mhm.
I think those scars, all of those scars that I have, my clients and my friends and my family, they benefit from those, and I benefit from those.
We all do, including
Yeah,
ourselves, right? So
totally.
you presented a question and I said yes to it because I am that person. And I didn't just get there overnight, right? It took decades of dedication. But when the suicide happened, immediately my mind went to, okay, what do we need to do? What do I need to do? What role am I playing in this? Who do I need to reach out to for prayer support? And okay, cool. Let's deal with the initial like messy shit that I need to deal with. And then in my next conversation, when some of that stuff was dealt with, was I see a lot of good coming from this. And the
Yeah,
person's like, huh? The person I'm
I know.
talking with is like, how?
Now, how could you ever say that, right? Yeah.
And I'm like, because I have trained myself to see the good in all situations and still face the reality of the horror scene that we were living in. So I wasn't
Mhm.
avoiding the horror and the pain and the trauma and the shit that we had to go through. I was facing that with my eyes wide open, but also facing the truth of there's good in this. And
Mhm.
because I was able to live in that duality, I was able to deal with my own trauma, the grief, the managing the cleanup crews, all the shit, and the survivors around me, and all the conversations, but seeing the good as we're going through the process and being able to identify it and speak to it for the other survivors too, if they were willing to listen. So
Mhm.
it brought a different perspective into the experience for everyone else that may have not been there. I could have played the victim. I could have gone down that dark rabbit hole and it wouldn't have done anybody any good, including myself. So, yeah, that was the perspective that I took through this process, and I still carry through this process, and we're still grieving and we're still dealing with it, and it's months later. Okay, great. That's part of the journey, but it's already made me a better person. It's already changed things for the better. It's already like fire refines, right? So this was a massive fire that I allowed it to refine me, and it's still refining me, and I'm so grateful for it. How many other people do I know that can say that as soon as a trauma pops off, they're looking for the good instantly? Not very many, but we
Not
should.
many.
We
Yeah.
should.
Yeah.
Instead of playing the fucking victim, because that gets
Right.
us nowhere good, it just
Right.
makes us more miserable as human beings. I don't want to be in that space. That's not what I subscribe to. That's not the life that I choose for myself every day. I want to be fulfilled, and I want to find the joy in grief, and I want to find the beauty in grief, and I want to find like the beauty in the massive pain and the fight or flight that kicked in for all of us, including myself, that then we had to deal with because someone else's choice drastically changed our lives. Immediately, I went into acceptance mode. I have to accept my new reality as quickly as possible so that I am not a massive shit show going through this. And that's what I told all the other survivors around me. I said, I'm doing better than you guys because I went to work accepting my new reality immediately instead of trying to go back to what was, because that's never going to happen again. This person changed our timeline.
Well, and you talking about this story is also greater good for listeners and people you engage with. So there's pearls. It's hard to say that when someone takes their own life. It's tragic.
It is.
But, operating in a way of awareness and what you're doing, I mean, now you talking about what you've gone through can help so many others. I firmly believe that. And you wouldn't be able to touch those types of people in those lives without unfortunately experiencing this yourself. So
Yep.
you're bringing a lot of good to a lot of people, I think. And it is hard. That growth mindset is what we should all be in. The whole victimhood is what always pisses me off. And when I had, consultants work for me, and it boils down to just taking accountability. I'm not a victim. I'm going to take accountability and I'm going to own it and I'm going to grow from it, move on. That doesn't happen all the time out there, does it?
No, it doesn't.
We're
And it
too
pisses me
afraid.
off too. That's why I dropped the F-bomb with it because it's pissed me off my entire life.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, oh my gosh, Joe, this
Yeah.
has been such an amazing conversation. We've gone longer than usual for recording, but
All right. Well,
this is good, like really, really good. And I know that our audience is going to get some takeaway from this, even if we piss them off because we called them out. If they're playing the victim, okay, you're welcome. I'll be your villain for a moment.
well, I love the fact that this wasn't a conventional, hey, let's talk about your insurance and your SaaS subscription. I think this talked to the root of some things here, and I hope they're able to
Mhm.
connect. The one
Mhm.
thing I'll leave you with is that for anyone who's listening, who's in a situation who thinks about their expenses, understand that, find the specialist that knows how you were sold to, go make buddies with them and have them help you reduce your costs. I
Mhm.
mean, that's really what it comes down to. And feel airtight and confident about that. Don't leave it as a guesswork because you're too afraid to look at it. Just look in the mirror, do it, and benefit from it.
Definitely. And if people want to have a consultation with you or pick your brain or have coffee with you, if they're in the Denver area, they could have a Zoom chat with you too. How do they
Okay.
find you? Is it your website or LinkedIn better?
LinkedIn is probably the best. So it's just under Joe Boglino, and they can reach out to me there. And I'm more than happy to engage and have a conversation with no strings attached. And if I can be of
Mhm.
any source just to talk around that, I'm happy to offer that just as helping, my fellow humankind out there.
Love that. Thank you so much for a very entertaining and riveting conversation.
Thanks, Misty. It was a
All right.
pleasure. All right.
Yes,
Take care.
definitely. You guys, if you want to reach out to Joe, please find him on LinkedIn and continue to be a great audience. We love you, and I will see you next time. Bye. Thank you for tuning in to the Wealthy Mind podcast.
Please be sure to download the Wealthy Mind app today and make sure to support your local Dress for Success.